Hi, welcome to the Senior Connection. I'm your host, Ellen O'Mara. This program is designed to bring senior resources into your living room. Hi. Today we have my good friend from Grand Care Systems, Mr. Charlie Hillman. You are my good friend.
Well,
I've known you for ages. We're old.
We are old.
And we're here to talk to the seniors in their homes about Grand Care Systems. I was very excited to find out about you guys because I think not only are you innovative, the time is right. As an insurance agent, I go into the homes and I see the needs in the homes, and I find that there are a lot of people that could benefit from your type of service. Tell me a little bit about when Grand Care started.
Well, Ellen, I think Plato once said, necessity, the mother of invention. And that is very true for our situation. In the early 90s, Gaith and I were living out in the country. And as is typical in country living, we had a little cottage about 500 feet away from our house where my grandmother was living, actually great aunt.
Your great aunt.
Great aunt. She was in her late 90s at the time. And she was happily there. She was in pretty good shape cognitively, and every morning she would walk over and have breakfast at our house, and we saw her a couple times a day. This is in the early 90s, and I was doing engineering consulting at the time. I'm an engineer by training and trade. And one morning, it was in January, I got a call from her, and she very seldom called me. So it was unusual, so she called me and she said, "Charlie, my house is cold." So I said, okay, it's in the middle of January in Wisconsin, so I thought I better check it out. So I went on over there, and the reason her house was cold was that she had opened up all her windows, and she'd opened up her windows because it was smoky in there, and she was smoky in there because her furnace was literally on fire.
Oh, my goodness.
So being a frugal Scandinavian woman as she was, she didn't even have a basement. She had a crawl space. So as I dug the snow out to get into this crawl space and saw, it wasn't a blaze, but there were flames, and I went over to, on the other side of the crawl space to turn off the propane. My heart went into my shoes, pretty much.
I bet.
Yeah. And anyway, I did that, and after it was done, and we got the furnace fixed, obviously, but I asked her, I said, well, what's been going on? She said, well, I've been hearing noises from downstairs, and it's been getting hot and cold in my place. And I said, well, why didn't you say anything? And of course, her answer was, I didn't want to bother anybody.
Yeah.
So Gaith and I thought to ourselves, wow, here's someone we see once or twice a day, a dear loved one, and she lived 500 feet away, independently in her own cottage, and she and the place almost went up. And I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a way for us to have that peace of mind that she's okay, and for her to be safe in her home. So at that point I said, well, I'm an engineer, I can do this. So I started investigating various smart home technologies, and we set up her with, obviously, temperature sensor right away to make sure we would know this in the future. And I did a little engineering to make sure that we could get into her home. And we did a few other things. I remember that I found a device that could control her TV. It would basically imitate a remote control. So every Sunday night, afternoon, I would have it turn on Lawrence Welk, turn the TV on and turn the station to Lawrence Welk, and she was at the point where that didn't really surprise her. She just would sit down and watch it. So I thought, here's a way that technology can also just make people a little bit happier with a little bit of communication in their homes.
Yeah.
So we worked and we solved our immediate problem, and we did think, wow, if we needed this so badly, others must also. We also decided at that time that we may be a little bit early for the market because we've started a number of businesses, but it seemed that this wasn't really on anyone's radar screen at the time.
You say that you're an engineer, but as I've known you, I always think of you as, excuse me, but a computer geek. I mean, you know computers inside out, upside down. And I think of engineers as mechanical or electrical, but you are really a computer engineer of sorts, are you not?
Well, my career has been eclectic, but it's always involved engineering, but using computers to solve engineering problems.
I see. Okay.
So when I worked for A.L. Smith, we did a thing called finite element analysis, and once again, that's using a computer to solve very complex structural or heat analysis problems.
Okay.
So a little bit, both are really true.
I never put the two together. I always think of you as somebody that's into computers, period, but I didn't know the two work together. So you basically have engineered a system through computer technology to address issues that the senior may have in their home, or someone who needs a little attention.
Exactly. We did put the business down a little while, and that's when we became internet providers, HNet here in West Bend.
Yeah.
And that really made things all the easier. I mean, I thought to myself, with the internet, there's the natural communication tool that we could use. So yes, then we, after we sold the internet business, we started once again full-time to develop Grand Care systems.
So the internet is a conduit to the Grand Care.
That's correct.
You need the internet to be able to use the system?
Yes, you do.
So tell me a little bit more about this. Now, we addressed the fact that if the house goes up in flames, somebody's going to know about it real quick.
Well, hopefully before it goes up in flames.
Right. But I know it can do so much more.
It is a very general purpose system, and a lot of technology is developed because the technical person thinks the technology is cool for some reason, and it doesn't actually address a specific problem.
It's true.
This, once again, born out of necessity, is a full-featured system, but it really does a lot of mundane things.
Like what?
It is really a combination of three things: monitoring, communication, and cognition. So on the monitoring side, for example, as I pointed out, it would keep track of the temperature just to make sure nothing was
That's just
wrong.
one.
Right.
Yeah.
But it can also, keep track of when doors are open. So if a door would open at a time it shouldn't, perhaps a caregiver should know.
Right.
It does things like monitor the telephone. It's kind of a remote caller ID. 85% of telephone scams are perpetrated on people 65 and older. And this actually happened to our family, to my mother-in-law in Sun City, Arizona.
Oh, wow. And you knew about it here?
Well, we did not have Grand Care, so we did not know about it. No, instead, she was essentially scammed out of about $15,000.
Ouch.
I know, it was terrible. They're terrible people to do that, but they prey on the elderly. And so now, if you like that, you can now find out remotely. In other words, I'm the son now, so I would, in that situation, I would be able to see that this financial firm kept calling my mother-in-law, who was, an early stage dementia at the time, and I would be able to call her up and say, what do they want?
That happened to us recently. I called your dad because as an insurance client, I had his name. I called him, and lo and behold, there's my buddy, Charlie.
That's right.
And you said that you were able to monitor his calls and to help him better be able to communicate with the public and make sure he doesn't get himself into trouble.
Right.
Yeah.
See, my father is living in that same little cottage now. He is in his mid-80s. Yes, and he's one of our.
So sweet.
Well, and so he was one of our very early Grand Care people.
Yeah.
So in his house, for example, we have motion sensors also. So we kind of know that he's moving around and that things are normal. And if, say, maybe he would have a little bit of a health problem, and all of a sudden he's going to the bathroom too many times or spending too much time at night in the bathroom, we would know.
Yeah.
And then we could ask him, what's going on, Dad? What's the problem? And really, there are a whole variety of those types of
If he would leave the house and not come home, you would know that as well, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. When he walks back, say he comes to dinner and walks back in the winter, Gaitha, of course, is worried that he might fall down.
Of course.
So she sets up the system to make sure that we'll know right away.
And how are you notified?
The system can notify you in a variety of ways. It can email you, it can text you, it can call you on your cell phone.
Oh, really? And that's all automatic?
It's all automated, yes.
That's great.
Yeah.